you are a studier at the intersection of literature and religion. So let's break it down word by word, metaphor, simile by simile, and see what. We'll start there, and then we'll go backwards, and then we'll come back here and see where our journey takes us. Does that make sense?
We'll see where we go.
Cool. All right, so let's start with, let's define beauty.
Well, beauty, there are a zillion different definitions of that. But for me at least, beauty is color, beauty is design, beauty is what we see and experience that creates this feeling of sometimes transcendence, that we feel deeply connected to something. And it could be something as simple as a sunset or a sunrise. It could be a painting, it could be music. But it seems to me that in the end, beauty is what makes life worth living. Mm-hmm. As Leonard Cohen said, I am a slave to beauty. And I am.
Felix, you want to jump in there? You want to define, or do you want to wait until we get to the curational parts of the conversation?
Continue.
Okay. All right. Let's keep going, Scott. So then let's define rebellion.
So the rebellion part comes really from my own experience over the last few years. I'm not here to offend anyone, but to me, I'm sort of horrified at what I see happening in our world today, and particularly in our country. It doesn't even look like the same country to me. And so each day I watch the news and I think it can't get any worse, but it does get worse. And so then you're faced with the question, at least for me, well, what can I do about it? And then that sometimes leads to this feeling of helplessness. There's nothing I can do about it. But I don't like to give in to that. And so I guess for me at least, one way that I try to make the world a little bit better is by providing some beauty to the world.
I got it.
And that's what I'm trying to do. You know, there are lots of ways to make the world better. Sometimes you have to protest and march and, you know, fight for everything to make it right. And then sometimes you have to create beauty and savor it and offer that to the world. And that's part of what this exhibit's about.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for setting those standards, if you will.
Yeah.
Setting the definition. I like to be clear as we're going forward in the conversation. Because I think there's actually some interesting connection points between our two communities. There's a big elephant in the room and also a mechanical bull that we'll talk about. That's also there are two animals in the room. So we started there. I want to take us all the way back because I'm very hesitant when I'm talking to artists, specifically abstract artists, getting into the area of like, what is this about? What does this mean? Where were you here? What does that mean? But I saw in your artist statement that you were pulling from memory. So I kind of want to jump into your memory and see if I can see what you see. I've been fortunate enough to live in a lot of places and experience a lot of cultures, especially in the mainland United States. But I'm not familiar with Southern Indiana at all. Well, I do have some information about Southern Indiana, but it is a very tragic information. So I would actually, can you just take me to where you're from? You said you were born and raised, and then you also went to school in Southern Indiana, correct?
Well, no. I didn't go to school in Southern Indiana, but I was born and raised in Southern Indiana.
Okay.
And it's like a lot of places in the world. It's a place. It's many places rolled into one.
Okay.
On the one hand, in terms of landscape, what surprises people if they've not been there, it's that it's actually a very lovely rolling hills kind of landscape.
Okay.
And so, I was fortunate to grow up in a county in Southern Indiana that would find its place in New England. It just has that kind of look and beauty to it.
Okay.
On the other hand, Southern Indiana and being close to the Mason-Dixon line has been a terrible place of racism. Mm-hmm. And of course now it's a kind of a very conservative kind of place, but I'm not going to go into all of that. I'm just saying that, it's a lot of different places.
Right. being from one of the places I'm from is Greenwood, Mississippi. And so in what I understood about Southern Indiana and actually how you're talking about it, I can understand how to be from a place but not necessarily be a representative of that place. And so what's interesting, you just said to me a second ago, especially as, I've been living in the city for a while, we call me city folk, I'm pretty sure y'all would say that. You identified as the county that you lived in, not the city, not the town, but you said the county. Like, take me through more of that type of thinking, of that small town mentality that you're coming from.
So I came from a small town. In the words of John Mellencamp, I was born in a small town, I'm going to die in a small town. So Salem, Indiana, county seat of Washington County.
Okay.
With 5,000 people. Yes. And so a very small town. I grew up in a town where there was not, to my knowledge, another person of color in that town. Not a black person, not a brown person.
Fascinating.
No one from an Asian descent that I know of.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like this kind of monoculture of a small town, southern Indiana town.
Okay.
When I was a boy, my grandmother and grandfather, they owned a little grocery store. We would go to Louisville, Kentucky. That was the nearest big city for us.
Okay.
And so not only did I grow up following the life of Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay Muhammad Ali, but it's the place where we would go downtown in Louisville. You would see actual black people and different races in that city. Louisville's a wonderful city, but it also was segregated and still is in many respects, I think. So I grew up in a very sheltered kind of way.
Okay.
And yet, I have to say, on behalf of my parents, we were taught some basic human things.
Okay.
And we were taught that we would respect everyone regardless of their skin color. There were words that we were never, ever allowed to utter in our house because that's not what we do and that's not what we say. Mm. And so as I grew and then moved away, my world kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually lived in New York City and lived in Los Angeles, California. There you see the full diversity of life displayed. Right. And I loved it. But I have to say that even though I grew up in that small Indiana town, I was fortunate to grow up in a family that understood a little bit of what it means to be a human being with dignity and respect.
I'm grateful to hear that. I appreciate your parents.
Yeah,
I appreciate them for that. So I guess let's take it from the small town. You said now you're going into the larger cities. Yeah. So tell me, what was your integration process into these larger spaces? Because I know once I moved from small town Mississippi and small town South Carolina, coming to these bigger places, it's a lot of culture shock. I'm very interested in how that affects your memory and your thought process as an artist.
Yes, well, just a couple of points. For me, my first career was that I was a clergy person.
Okay, let's pause for a second.
Yes.
Because I got to reveal something to you, Scott.
Oh boy.
I don't know what that is.
Okay. I was a minister of a church.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. I could have Googled, right? And I was researching my notes, and I could have clearly Googled.
Yeah, sure.
But I wanted to reveal that ignorance to you.
No, there's no ignorance. No. But I was a minister of a church, and fortunately, I was able to serve some really great churches over the course of my career. Okay. But
by minister of a church, what do you mean?
I mean, I was the senior minister.
You were preaching?
I would preach every Sunday.
Oh, okay.
As well as sort of kind of run the staff. I wouldn't run the church. I wanted to, but they wouldn't let me. Anyway. Okay. So, but one big kind of one of those moments for me was when I was in New York City and I was the chief program officer of the Riverside Church on the Upper West Side of New York, which is sort of the borderline Columbia on one side and Harlem on the other. And the church there was probably about 60, 70% African American, as well as just so many, it was just so multicultural. And I went there, and instead of it being a shock, it was really, it felt like I've been looking for this my whole life.
Okay.
I loved it. I loved the diversity. I mean, it was stressful at times, and people were coming at things in different ways, but I'm telling you, it was exciting, and it was never boring.
Really?
And I loved that part of it, and I was able to meet so many leaders from around the world who would, when they would come to New York, they would come to the Riverside Church. And so that was great. The other thing that was also great about the Riverside Church, it was a place where they integrated the arts very much into the life of faith. There was a theater there. There was a film study there, that connected with Columbia and other institutions. Okay. All of that cross-interdisciplinary work was going on, which I loved. So that was an important thing for me. Another important step, that's something I mentioned, there are many, but when I was in Los Angeles, I was the senior minister of First Congregational Church of Los Angeles, which is sort of like the Riverside Church on the East Coast. First Congregational Church was like that on the West Coast.
Okay.
A huge cathedral, beautiful Gothic cathedral, but it was also a place where we were right in the middle of Koreatown, and the diversity. I mean, LA is the most diverse city in the United States.
Right.
And it was, again, exciting, and then also our work with the arts and kind of using one of the chapels as a gallery space. All of that was part of what I did there, and I loved it. But again, the world just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger for me. Not in the sense of that I'm more important, in the sense that you just begin to see how rich and diverse it is.
Okay. I see where you're coming from.
Am I speaking too long?
No, you're speaking. No. I got you.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
I'm very into it. With what you're saying
All right.
I'm interested now in this journey into artistry, because when I'm reading your artist bio and I'm watching your interview in your backyard, and I'm seeing some people write about you, it feels, I could be incorrect, but it feels like on Monday you were a clergyman, but then you retired from clergy work. It's like, okay, today, now I'm an artist. And I'm not necessarily a believer in binary. So I want you to take me through like your first inclination of when you became an artist, or when you thought that like, oh, am I an artist? Was a rejection of the identity first? What happened when you first started to have these artistic percolations, if you will?
Yes, well, I'd always had the artistic inclinations in a variety of ways. I wound up doing my doctorate in studying the relationship of literature and theology,
right.
Religion and literature. So that was an incorporation of the arts. Then, also while I was at graduate school, I was drawn more and more to the visual arts. Mm-hmm. And I started reading, studying, appreciating. And then I kind of became a museum junkie. Okay. And then I sort of gradually started playing around, with some painting, but it was just sort of on the side in the back on the back patio. Okay. Mm-hmm. But I was also working at this really big job, and I just did not have time to do it. And so I then had made the decision that I wanted to retire, and I wanted to work the rest of my days as an artist. Okay. And so I had the opportunity to retire early. Okay. I retired at 62, but I knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to open up my studio and really focus on creating. And so that's what I did.
You think what I'm saying? So, okay, I'm gonna get you in there, Felix, right into this question right here. Okay, so did you leave the old girl for the new girl? Is that what happened? Were you thinking while you were clergy, I can't wait to get up out of here?
Let's don't talk about the girl. The answer to your question is, I was ready to make this transition because I made the decision so early on in my life that I wanted to be in service to the church.
Okay.
I mean, I was like a teenager when I decided I wanted to go to college and then go on to seminary and all of that.
Yeah,
so
okay.
I made that very early on. So even though I retired early at 62, I'd been doing this a long time.
Okay.
I was ready for something different. And also, I was tired of explaining at a cocktail party what a minister was. But now I find that explaining what an artist does is just as complicated.
Yes. Okay, Felix, I'm ready for you.
Yeah.
Felix, you and I we've been becoming friends over the last couple of years. I think I met you the first time here at Art of the Noize.
Right here.
Over the couple of years, you mentioned to me in the first conversation we were talking, but you know I'm in the hard of hearing community, so I didn't catch all of it. But I've been wanting to ask you this. Why is your name Felix, and why is it in all caps? And I'm asking you that as another nom de plume, someone who uses a different name. Why did you choose your name, and why did you choose to spell it the way that you spell it?
There was a movie about that.
Okay.
Have you seen it?
Right.
No.
Tell people about your movie.
There's a movie called Felix Austria, Austria. And so...
You gotta send me the link, man. 2 years later, you had a movie, man?
It's on Amazon Prime.
So I should have Amazon Prime Felix and I would have found it. Okay. My apologies, friend.
It premiered in Toronto in 2013.
Okay.
And so it is, Felix Austria is the nickname of Austria. From a Latin saying, Bella Garantiali tu Felix Austria nubia. And that means, may all other houses wage war, you happy Austria marry. And that's a reference to the Habsburgs, who were the House of Austria. And I was an Austrian scholar. I was a Fulbright scholar in Austria.
Okay.
And my whole intellectual and aesthetic world revolved around the cosmos of Habsburg aesthetics, which Habsburg aesthetics being, we can see it in two parts. The first part being the world empire from Vienna and Madrid, and therefore the New World, and then later from Central Europe, Prague, Vienna, Budapest. And so that was my world, but my name was Brian when I was born.
We have similar names.
I don't know. Well, some people may not know that here, but it was, and it wasn't where my essence was. And so my sister and I had stage nicknames for each other at home, and I called her Foxy Roxy, and she called me Felix something. I can't remember. It wasn't Felix. It wasn't. Felix Fine. That's what she called me.
Okay.
Her stage name for me was Felix Fine, but it was also conveniently the name of Felix Austria, the world of my intellectual and aesthetic dreams. And so I changed my name to Felix when I was 25. Oh, what year are we?
2025.
25. Yes, I changed it 30 years ago. You know what? I showed up at Pratt Institute for the first day of to start the School of Architecture there. And the director of the program said, well, Brian, welcome. And I said, you can call me Felix. And from that moment on, I was like, well, damn, I have to go. and I went with it.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is my name. And it's all caps because I'm very particular. I'm not just an architect. I'm not just a Virgo. I'm not just of Germanic descent. I am very particular about how things look. And I like that Felix has no curves in it. It's all rectilinear.
Yeah.
That pleases me as an architect. So when I sign my name in a text, it's always all caps. That's why.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So many. Okay. Wow.
And by the way, and so I.
So I take it you were Austrian descent.
No.
Did I miss that? Did I miss that? No.
No, I'm of Germanic descent, but not Austrian. Yeah.
Okay, so okay. I'm following you.
Not
man.
that part of the Germanic Austrian.
You're not from there, but from
another part of Germany,
Okay.
Stuttgart.
Okay. You mentioned it didn't match your essence.
Yeah.
How'd you know?
I knew because Brian to me was a name of a
I'm sorry.
moment, perhaps.
I'm not too curious about Brian.
Oh.
I'm more curious about your essence. Brian's cool.
Okay.
Brian's cool. I'm more interested in how your essence felt like it didn't fit Brian, not Brian fit your essence.
Just how Felix fits my essence.
How your essence fits you, and not Brian.
What about Felix?
Well, your feelings.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
Yes. How the name fits my essence.
No. The other way around.
Oh,
How the
my
essence fits your name.
feels-
Because I feel like, did the essence come first? Or did you say, oh, I'm Felix, and
Yeah,
then the essence
my
followed?
essence, because it's timeless. And you know the name Felix
I
comes
do?
from Latin,
Okay.
which is rooted in the Roman Empire and in Rome.
Okay.
And there are a number of popes named Felix.
Okay.
And so there's obviously a Heilige Felix, Saint Felix. And so it's a timeless and classic name. And it's also cosmopolitan, can be spoken in French, Je m'appelle Felix. In Spanish, yo amo Felix. In Russian, you say Felix also. In German, it's Felix. In Italian, it's Felice. So I have a very cosmopolitan soul.
Okay.
And I speak 4 different languages.
Yes.
So I like to be able to be this person in all those languages.
Yes. Okay. I'm not sure. Okay. There seems to be an intense amount of intentionality in the naming, but at the same time, I'm also hearing that it seems to be combinations of fate and also of a little personal history. And I'm trying to see if I can tie that to your ideology as a curator. Why did you choose Austria? Why did you study these particular things that you said that are obvious? I've never heard of none of these people you just said a second ago.
Okay.
Not even close. The social media stat that most men think about the Roman Empire 6-7 times a day. Not I. Haven't thought about it until Gladiator 2, and then you just now. That's 8 months apart. So I'm very curious about how your intentionality ties into your work as a curator, because Scott says he's not intentional. It's about process. It's about memory. So trying to unpack you, let's unpack that intentionality. Why Austria? Why the Roman Empire? Why cosmopolitan?
Well, because the Habsburgs, for one, represent the extension, literally.
Okay.
And I mean this both legally and cerebrally, for lack of a better word right now. It represent the extension of the Roman Empire, which to me is the basis of Western civilization, which is what my mind revolves around. The Habsburgs embodied that in Vienna. Then the Jews who were in Vienna at the turn of the last century were the breadth of and apotheosis of all Enlightenment ideals coming out of the 18th century. And there, burst forth, modernism burst forth like this wild Baroque and abstract butterfly.
Gotcha.
And I like the convergence of those two worlds. And like the Jews, I feel myself, although I have no Jewish background, I feel a kinship to the Jewish spirit within Vienna at that time, because they were the embodiment of the cosmopolitanism of the Habsburgs, a multinational empire, an empire that could not be defined by nation state or one people. So you didn't have, I take that back. Well, you did not have the virulent racism within that empire as clearly as you did in Russia and France and Germany. It was more after the Habsburgs were removed. But that cosmopolitanism, because they were Weltfreunde. Also ein Weltfreund friends of the world,
Okay.
wherever they go.
Sure.
And that's the kind of person I feel myself to be. And so I embrace the arts wherever I go, and in whatever form I see it. So when people ask me, for instance, what my favorite style in architecture is, or art, I can't possibly answer. All I can say is I love excellence, I love depth, I love intent, and I love seeing thought. Yeah.
Well said.
Mm-hmm. This is going to be fun. I'm just like, this is going to be exciting. Okay, so then let's talk about the art of curation. I know that you have your hats in several other art forms, but in this particular meeting right now, we're talking about your being the guest curator here at the Art of Noize. How did you meet up with Scott? What was the initial conversations like, or even how did you bump into his work? Is this something that somebody you've been studying since, he pledged his life at 19? You're waiting for him to come to the draft? What are we going to?
So I think I can speak in part to Scott's transition into the arts because I knew him at one of those two iconic churches of which he was minister. Okay. First Congregational Church in Los Angeles. It might be hard to describe how beautiful the setting of that church is and how much Scott embellished that and enriched it and maximized its...
And you saw that. Yeah.
Presence, artistic impact, and therefore also the impact that art can have in spirituality. Mm-hmm. And Scott really brought that to the church. It is a church not unlike our National Cathedral here in Washington, D.C., perhaps less than half the size, but for Los Angeles, it's a huge cathedral-scale neo-Gothic church with a professional choir that sing only classical music in general, but it also notably has the largest church pipe organ in the world. The sounds that would move through that church on a Sunday and the pageantry of just even the robes flowing by, and did we have incense? Or did I just smell that from some Catholic past that I was imagining? In any case, there was a lot of ceremony in it, which for me also embodies my sense of connection to the beginning of Western civilization, to the Habsburgs, to the ceremony.
I got it. I put it together. Okay, I got it. Okay. Yeah. The brain thing just happened. Go ahead. Keep going.
And Scott, Scott was keen to arrange a lot of arts events at this church. There were many prominent people associated with this church, and we had some wonderful art exhibitions there and musical events that were just stunning, really stunning, and I think added to me, spirituality isn't possible without the beauty of art in it, as part of the ceremony, as part of the ritual. And that would be music and art. Music and the pictorial arts and the performance.
Yes.
Okay.
Not to mention, Scott had a marvelously welcoming, broadly engaging message. Yeah, and tone. One couldn't but help feel extremely comfortable in that environment. Yeah.
Scott, talk to me about the beginnings of this relationship. From what I'm hearing about and what I know about the art of curation, I know it takes a lot of trust to trust another person with your vision, with your art, especially if you are in the midst of transitioning to the dream career that you've been thinking of. So tell me about the beginnings of that relationship.
Well, Felix became important to me, first of all, as as a friend, and we would occasionally get together, and every time we got together, every conversation would lead to another conversation, and so I just loved those conversations, and so we were friends and stayed in touch. And then he had moved to Washington, D.C., and I had moved to Bloomington, Indiana, and then we reconnected. This was 7 or 8 years ago now. We reconnected, and so I was, at this point I'm painting, and so I'm showing him some things, and I really respect his aesthetic sensibilities. And so he would offer some insight, and which I very much appreciated, and to this day does. But then he wound up doing a major renovation, interior design project for our friend Janet here, and I'm going to invite everybody to Janet's house someday, because it's truly, this is a project that should have been an Architectural Digest. It was that important. Felix is the complete genius behind it all, and Janet, I want to say, it would have been very easy for her never to have done a project like this, but for some reason she had the capacity to imagine a different look at her house. Well, part of that different look was that Felix had in mind that it's a lovely house, by the way. It's not a pretentious house. It's just a lovely house. But he wanted to create this living room, dining room that would almost look like a kind of jewel box. Yeah. And so he then commissioned me to do 15 paintings, floor to ceiling, different widths that circle all of those two rooms. And then, of course, he added these beautiful storage vitrines that some of Janet's porcelain and ceramic work is displayed there. But then that was a big project for me and for Felix. Okay. Was it big for you? I think it was big for me. In that it was a year's worth of painting that I worked in. I'll never forget, I delivered them to Washington, D.C. Had to be the hottest day on the record.
It was your birthday, wasn't it?
Yeah, maybe. I don't remember.
This city is so hot and humid.
It is.
I love D.C., but man, I was sweating. And so I drove a U-Haul truck with these paintings. I'm not a truck driver, okay? But I got here. I was never so glad to turn a truck in. But then the project happened. And then since that time, various friends of Felix have become friends of mine, and for which I'm grateful. And so when I was actually very glad that Felix was curating this show, because once you paint something, it's hard for you to see it. Yeah. Somebody else can see it.
Want to get some perspective, context?
Well, I would hope, actually, for everyone here someday to be able to see Janet's house. Sorry, Janet.
After party at Janet's.
A lot of tea parties.
It's the after party.
That's right.
But it is spectacular. It really is such a special experience. Every time I go there, I'm taken aback and stunned. And also by his achievement, Scott's achievement, because he was a young artist. This was now coming up on 3 years ago that we started. We started this 3 years ago. He was only, I think, perhaps 2 years into painting. And what I saw were elements of his work happening, elements like this, atmospheric elements that couldn't be discerned precisely. They could be champagne bubbles, or they could be a cosmos, but they were a mass. I saw them as a mass. And then he had more linear, ethereal paintings. And I knew I wanted both for that project. It wasn't just because I happened to know Scott's work. I already had a composition in my mind, and it happened to fit with work Scott was working on. I would never commission. I have commissioned since I was 16 years old. I've been commissioning artists to work. Yeah, I just if I see a vision, if I have a vision, I know I can't produce it. I find the person who can.
Right.
And then I work with that person. So when I was running for student body president at my high school, I commissioned a young artist to create a legend. It said, create a legend. And it was the image, the Warhol image of Marilyn Monroe in it. And then it was elect Brian Pfeifle, student body president.
Yeah.
So anyhow, so I when I commission an artist for a vision I have, I will only do it if it already is something they can add to their portfolio without explaining it as some anomaly.
Gotcha.
That they can use in their wider body of work. And Scott could use those very paintings. It's, by the way, the 15 paintings are 75 feet long around the room. And for Scott to have his first, he delivered one round, and they were awful. And I told him that, but it didn't worry me at all. I had no worry at all because he had done these little studies. I'm sorry, I have some in my kitchen. He had done these little studies, and they were so spot on. It was incredible. It was like, yes, absolutely. Now, a lot of you may not understand that to go from this scale to then 78 inches high, 5 feet wide, like 5 of them or so, is quite another matter. And Scott, on his first round, really missed the target.
Okay.
And was And he got worried, and I was never worried because I knew that he had hit it once, he would do it again, and then he came back, and they're masterful. I don't know if I think I was saying to you this morning, there's not one aspect about them I would change. And there are elements of those paintings in most of these. Yes. So that you have atmosphere massing at the base of the room, like a wainscot to anchor the furniture, and then you have ethereal lines, linearity rising to the ceiling. In part because I wanted to give an illusion of elevating the ceilings a little higher. So that is where we started, and then I think I showed this to Adrian, or I invited Adrian to Janet's house. Yes, that was it.
We do that
So
all.
you've been to
Show up at Janet's house.
Janet. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. This was not part of my questioning, but now you've revealed some secrets.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever thought about if an artist misses the mark. I always feel like artists are like 100, like 100 for 100. I didn't know that they could miss. And so, with that being said, I fancy myself somewhat of a curator. I've never thought to give an artist be like, it's not the one. What confidence does it take? How much trust in your relationship does it take? Was there any worry that when you told this to Scott, this would break his confidence and he would go crying into the sheds of Indiana? Or did you like, no, we need to get this done. Here are the notes.
I did.
Second option?
I did, yeah. I was quite clear and brief in that clarity, but also assuring to Scott that we had already been where he would arrive, and he was entirely capable of it, and not to fear missing it. And I well understood. And I was then very sensitive to the fact that, Scott is young at this.
Yeah.
This is not, it was a tall order. This was a big order. Literally 75 feet. But Scott mastered it with aplomb. Yeah.
Scott, let me get your perspective on this.
Sure.
So, young artist, but you're not a young man.
No, I'm not a young man, and So failure is part of it.
Really?
And it, I've worked and worked and worked on paintings, and the more I tried to make them work, the worse they got.
Okay.
And finally, you just have to say, this is shit. And you just got to get rid of it,
Yeah.
The thing with Felix is that in this case, I did not want to disappoint him. He was counting on me.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, I can't always discern why he likes one thing and not another thing.
Okay.
Because he has a much finer eye than I have.
Okay.
And I recognize that. I'm better at understanding.
Okay. But you started drawing as an artist. You started at 16.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, the more you're exposed to art, the more you see.
Right.
And it's like reading. The more you read, you begin to see a lot of what I read wasn't all that well written.
Mm.
But then you keep reading and then you say, oh, now that's well written.
Right.
And you recognize it. And it's rare, but when you find it, it's wonderful. Or when you can create it, it's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So I did write one letter of resignation to Felix that I did not send. but I'm glad I didn't send it.
Yeah.
And we have a great relationship, and he's still very clear to me.
Yeah.
And he tells me, he helps me understand things and by telling me the truth.
Right.
And sometimes that's hard to hear but then when you think about it, yeah, that's right. I see it now. I see it now. It's part of the process.
Yeah. I love that. I was not expecting that turn. Other artists in the room, do we mix? Do y'all sometimes? It's just, no, this is not good. I really tried, but whoops.
Yeah.
Red? Yeah? Really? Why didn't y'all tell me? I thought y'all were perfect.
Just like, look at it, it's like, just mask it, black paint, start over.
You know what, Steele? I'm glad you're talking. I'm finna talk about you now. Okay, so y'all ready to talk about the elephant in the room? Ready?
Yeah.
Elephant in the room? Okay. Scott, I read on I think it's your artist statement on your bio, it says, art is an opportunity to explore what it means to be a human being. Former clergyman Felix, I want to tell y'all a story if you don't mind. This is a couple of days ago. Me, my friend Steele Wavy, and my new friend Sam Morris, we are smoking weed outside of my studio space. During this weed smoking session, I'm telling them, I have a artist talk tomorrow. And it instantly reminds me, actually, the pieces that I saw from Scott remind me of my friend Steele Wavy. Now, Steele Wavy, Scott, I think might be the complete opposite of you. He is a younger black man, face tats, jerry curl, comes from like a very urban community, DC, DMV space. But the way he was ranting and raving about Jackson Pollock, the same way I imagine you'd be ranting and raving, I was like, these two artists are like artistic cousins. They got the same granddaddy. That's how I think about it, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, as you're presenting Beauty is Rebellion in a traditionally black artist space, how do you feel that you connect to this space, especially if we're talking about the universality of thoughts? How come Steele Wavy, who is here with us right now, can look the opposite of you, be in the opposite life experience as you, but still come out with, not similar because his voice is different, but still have the same lineage of artistic expression? How is that possible?
That's a great question. One, I like it because it's a reminder that there are these streams that just feed into our souls, and they make us who we are. And one stream I might love, another stream another person might love, or it's the same stream, but we see it differently. But still, it somehow feeds our creativity, and it feeds our vision for what we want to try to make. And so I love that. And it's also a reminder, maybe, that art has a way of bringing people together. It can be controversial at times, I get that. And it can divide us at times, I get that. But sometimes art has the power of bringing people together in ways that surprise us.
Right.
And I like that.
I got something for that. Felix, can you speak on that too? Can we speak on how you think this is possible? How do you think, like, well, you know what, Felix? I'm going to answer the question for you. I've met Felix here at the Art of Noize. And Felix looks the way he looks, very cosmopolitan, very opposite of myself. And yet, every time I've met Felix, it has been in the realms of this black-focused, black and brown artist-focused arena. I have also been to the Smithsonian's, I've been to the Rebels, I've been to the other museums in the same space. I don't see Felix there. Not to say that Felix doesn't go there, maybe we go at different times. So I can see how Scott says it takes intentional effort to blend communities, and then I look at you as the intentional effort. And again, I gotta ask you, why? Why are you coming to the Art of Noize? Why are you developing this relationship with Adrian? Why are you interested in showing art in this particular space? You seem to be the linchpin of the connective tissue between these two communities. Why did you volunteer for that?
In the case between Scott and Adrian, I am, right?
Yes.
And insofar that now I live in a city of which 67% of the population is African American, and I haven't been around those numbers of, or that sort of mass of African American culture before. And also, I think coming out of George Floyd and what happened in 2020, and seeing, for instance, on the fence, the unscalable fence in front of the White House on Lafayette Square at that time, about a half block of images of African Americans who had been killed by police or law enforcement in the United States over time. I became sensitive to wanting to understand what the Black experience is, realizing I was woefully naive and uneducated and wildly unaware. And so that's why I listened to your podcast, with Lady of the House, because I'm learning. And so this is a big part of our community, and so it's something I want to understand as much of an extension of all the communities I've ever come from or moved through. You know?
I do appreciate that. It is as someone who also connects communities, I can tell you it is a very vulnerable position to be in.
Yeah.
Because ideally, everything could go great. But not ideally, everything could go terrible.
Yeah.
These communities could tear each other apart. And so I guess my follow-up question is the confidence in the art. Was it the confidence in the art, the confidence in the community? Talk to me about that methodology of weighing the risks versus the rewards to the situation.
Well,
because you're a curator, so part of this is business too.
Not precisely for me.
No, okay.
No,
You just ran from that.
To my loss, that's not something at the forefront of my mind. I'm thinking about ideas, the cross-section of ideas and relationships and improving relationships, enriching potential.
Right.
And one example is Maurice. Help me with Maurice's work. Maurice's work spoke to me very much, an artist who is shown here, because he imagines like an African-American utopia in his work that may have happened. And what's amazing about it is when you look at some of his work, you think you've actually been to that building,
right,
or that college that he's proposing is a jewel in African American culture in America. But I connect to it because in my studies as an architect and also architectural historian, there's so much of the visionary utopian legacy by the great architects of the early modernist period Frank Lloyd Wright's one, Mies van der Rohe, Corbusier, they all propose these perfected modern worlds, and that's what Maurice is doing in his work.
Right.
And I love seeing the celebration of a whole other African American reality that could still yet come to fruition, and I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see that.
And I understand it because it's actually delivered in the language of an architect, of an urban planner.
Yeah.
So
when I look at Maurice's work, and now that you have given me a very detailed, although I don't understand everything, a very detailed understanding of your name and your particular practice, your ideology, where you're coming from as an artist, I see now the very direct connection points, even between the church with Scott, between the architecture with Maurice James Jr. Okay. I'm reading you, Felix. I get it now. I get you now. You're not such a mystery. Okay, let's do one thing before we take some questions from the artists. I would love to talk about one of these pieces in particular. Scott, I'll let you pick.
Oh, okay. What should I do, Felix? Oh.
There's one we talked about on the call. I didn't want to unveil, but you talked about a particular combination of materials on the call.
Oh, yes, okay. So, yes, so I'm looking at these framed pieces, and the ones on canvas are unframed. I did finish the edges, but they're unframed. They could be framed if you wanted one, but they wouldn't have to be framed. But the others are framed, and this is a combination of materials that's, I'm not saying it's unique, but it's a bit unusual because I'm using heavy oil paints with lots of oil in the paint and painting it then on paper. And so people think, well, why are you doing like oil paint on paper? And the reason why I like it is because, one, I never quite know what's going to happen. And so, you know, it's great to have intent, but a lot of times it's the accidents that begin to happen. And sometimes the paper inexplicably just takes the paint perfectly. And then at other times, it soaks through the paint so quickly. And then the oil starts oozing out from the edges of the paint so that it creates an oil stain, which I happen to like some of the oil stains that happen on the paper. And then other times, I'm using this, using my technique, and the paper is almost like it's rejecting the paint. It's like it's not as porous as the paper I had been using last week. And so then you have to, then you can press a little harder, or you do a little something different to get the look that you want. So that's what I'm doing, and I like that. I plan on actually working more and more with paper and the paints, but you can see on these, on the walls over here, I'm trying to create a kind of almost like a Rothko-like color field in one sense, but I'm using this linear line that goes across, and I'm trying to create, I guess I'm fascinated with the line because I like it when things meet. I like it when this thing meets this thing, and suddenly a third thing emerges. It's a third world that happens, a third reality that springs forth. And so, you know, for me, these paintings up here, what I like most about them is how the line runs through, and yet the line is changed by the color underneath, and it's changed by the color up above, and it links them to create this. To me, it has a kind of mystery to it. When I look at that yellow line, I look at that red line over there, or in this one that's hung vertically, I let the canvas become, let the paper become the line itself. So I'm interested in that kind of thing, and And going back to our understanding of culture, I really like it when one culture meets another culture. I get it that one culture needs to have its identity. I respect that. And another culture wants its identity. I respect that. But I really love it when those two identities meet. And I think something really interesting happens when that happens. It's when straight people start to understand queer people. It's when white people start to understand Asian people. It's when African American people begin to understand whatever you fill in the blanks. Old people, young people, that line where culture creates something new, interesting. And so that's part of what I was trying to do there. Yeah.
Thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
And I would add, I think that explanation resonates where we see a vibrational force in that line, especially in that claret? Is it claret or claret?
Claret.
Claret. Thank you. The claret colored painting top right, or in the blue down over here, in the yellow and yellowish field there. Some may see horizon lines. I see more vibrational vibrational forces.
Yeah, like sound.
Like sound.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I feel sound in them, static, like the television or something.
Okay.
As well. I'll add one thing that has very much attracted me to Scott's work is as an architect, and especially in the interior architecture, the work of interior architecture I've done, I've always looked for the potential to decorate a wall, so to speak, quote unquote, with architecture, showing the potential of architecture on a two-dimensional surface.
Right.
That the wall can become layers of architecture within the very simple dimensions. This is one example. You see what I've done here by
Yes.
curating this? I can show the potentiality of architecture, how much you can layer a wall in so shallow a space. His paintings are already doing that. I just happen to be looking, when I am looking at abstract paintings like these, I'm looking for a world beyond. I'm looking for other surfaces. I'm looking for an opening to another place, an opening to another dimension. And it doesn't have to be done. I don't know if Rothko tried to do that. I don't think he did. I don't even know if you're trying to do that, but that's what I'm looking for. And before we get there to that space beyond, what I like are the vibrational forms in what appears to be the foreground. Now these are starting to disappear here, these ones on the bottom, because the light is going away. But during the day, you feel like you've been opened up to some cosmos that may keep going and going.
Yeah.
I like to have that potential to travel. Yeah.
Yeah.
In
Okay.
paintings.
Okay. Well, fellas, that was the last of my questions. I'm now looking over to the audience to see if they've done their homework that I assigned 10 minutes ago. Yeah, just we have an after party, right? We still have an after party. We're hosting that. We're going to James. That's right. We're going to James for the after party. That's right. Any questions from the audience? I mandated 2. So we'll look at each other awkwardly for the next 5 minutes. Here we go. Go ahead.
I would like to know, how has your spirituality changed through being able to, through this art, do you feel like you're freer, or again, what kind of change?
Yes, thank you for that question. Yes, I think I'm on. Yes. Oh, there I'm on. Am I on?
Yeah.
Good. I think part of this was a natural evolution going on with me. But for me at least, as you know, as a person who was working with the church and representing the church, on the one hand, I loved it very much, and on the other hand, it started to feel like a pair of shoes that was a little too small. And I needed more room. And so, for me, my concept of faith has always been that faith should make our world bigger, not smaller. And a lot of people use religion to make the world more manageable. Right. And to me, the last thing the world is manageable. Which is a good thing, because then it means it can be unmanageably wonderful. So now as an artist, I have no creed I'm following. I have no group I'm representing. I'm just doing my thing. And that feels free. I feel free to do that. And whether somebody likes it or doesn't like it, whether it sells or doesn't sell, in the end, it doesn't really much matter to me. I'm terrible at selling paintings. I'm awful at it. But I know what I'm creating. I know the process I'm engaging. And I know it's tapping into something of depth inside me. And if somebody can feel a little of that when they look at it, to me, that's success. Does that make sense? Yeah, thank you. Yes.
I ain't gonna his comments well still wavy. Question.
Yeah, that's still waiting.
Still waving.
Yeah.
Still wavy, like the metal.
Yeah.
Still
Yeah.
like the metal
Still
that
wavy.
wavy, like wavy TV. Well, my question for you is, when you had that moment of when you hit that wall, when he said he didn't necessarily like what you made at that moment, and you had to kind of step back and regroup, what was that process like when you kind of hit that moment where you were saying you were kind of initially, like, did you feel rejection, or what was that moment that you felt when you were kind of breaking through to make that next piece that you felt that he would like?
Well, it was a little bit painful because I guess because of my love and affection for Felix and our friendship, the last thing I wanted to do was to let him down. And trust me, I've been the responsible human being for a long time, okay? And so I wanted to be responsible. I wanted to come through for him. I wanted to do well by him. But in the end, it was good. It just let me go to a different place. I stepped back. I listened. I tried to listen to what he was saying. I looked again. I made some more studies in my studio, just small little pieces that I was looking at. And then I started realizing, I think this is what he's wanting. And I would send pictures and he would say, yeah, that's not quite it. I sent another picture, that's closer. And then I'd send another picture, yes, that's it. Just do that. That's it. And then you see it. But it takes a while to get there. You know, it's not because he lacked the communication skills or I lack the hearing skills. It just takes time to get to a certain place. And what I find is some works of art take a lot more time than other things. You know?
And still wavy, I think that's an interesting question because obviously this is an unusual way of working. I consider it a pre-modern manner of engaging. It's very much in the manner of the church commissioning works, an aristocrat commissioning works, but insofar, the artist, I think, has to be in a position to take his or her ego, away from it as this master whose vision alone can be regarded. That this is a highly collaborational work that to me is a lot more enriching to the community than just an artist being the master of everything he does, which is that's the model on which the modern artist is based. Like he's some sort of legend, and only his vision is the vision you get to see for the gallery. Whereas the pre-modern or that outside the bourgeois model of consumption, where the artist is creating a widget, a piece of what do you call the most obvious thing? A consumer item, a product. Yeah. In former times, or in in communities where the bourgeois model is not hegemonic, it's more of a communal, collaborative piece that happens, and I think that's what I'm working on with him, or was in that case. Yeah, and I do that in a lot of work.
So how has that collaboration process been over the years? Have you guys like butted heads a lot, or like has that helped butting heads help build that relationship, or how has that?
I'll answer that. We've not really butted heads, no. But and the reason why is because I respect his aesthetic so much. And so even if he's telling me something I don't understand, I know I need to at least understand it. In the end, I can't paint for Felix. I have to paint for myself. And that's it. And I have to be responsible for it. But it's always a great conversation when we have that. And the trust has kind of always been there, you know. Every now and then I think, what's he want? I don't get it. But that's really more about my limitation, not him. Yes.
Scott, can you talk a little bit about the influence of literature in your work? This piece is titled Baldwin. The one I'm really gravitating to, the center holds, I think might be an allusion to Yeats, but I'm not sure.
It is.
Okay, and so it's just like.
Yes. So. Thank you. Yes. So a lot of, I'll confess, I'm a reader. Okay, I read, and so and early on in my graduate studies, I was very much interested in literature, and that was the art form that I really explored. First with novels, and then with poetry. So I've done a lot of reading in that area, and so it just sort of just seeps in when I'm painting now. And so, like, I think I'm writing this last year. It may have been the year before, but I think it was last year. Would have been the 100th birthday of James Baldwin. Mm-hmm. Well, I have such admiration for James Baldwin and read so many of his books, and also his life story is just so fascinating. Mm-hmm. His life is like a window into America when you really think about his life. Very much so. So anyway, I wound up doing a large work that I did in honor of his 100th birthday, and then I did 2 smaller works. I know that one looks large, but that is a smaller compared to the others. And it's simply James Baldwin at 100, mm-hmm. and that was my attempt to sort of honor him, and partly what I was trying to do is capture, if you will, his blackness, which he understood so deeply, mm-hmm. and also the light and the multiple insights that came from this man's life. Mm-hmm. So that was an attempt to do that. The center holds, that is an allusion to Yeats, absolutely. And I thought I had another one here.
Is it Everything is Luminous?
No. There's one that I thought I brought, that I titled My Cold Heaven, which is also an allusion to Yeats. He mentions a cold heaven. Mm-hmm. So things just creep in. I don't know where they always come from, but they're there. Yeah. Yes.
So I was also going to ask a question about poetry.
Yes.
Actually, both of you. What about music? Because I mean, you brought up Felix, the vibration. I mean, so William Wordsworth is who I'm thinking of, or Lawrence Ferlinghetti.
Yes.
But there's rhythm in the words. In my life, I was a literature major, but I went out to law school. Anyway, but while I was doing literature
Yes.
And writing a ton, I always had music on in the background. And sometimes it was jazz. And some jazz I just can't cope with. I like jazz that I can move to. And that's another thing. I see movement here. So what about music?
Yes, very important to me. I always have music on when I paint. And which I'm glad my studio is so isolated because I really crank it up. And I listen to it. And music's just been such a part of my life.
What kind of music do you listen to?
I'll, like a lot of people, I'll just say all kinds. But I think I have one piece here, maybe that is a kind of tribute to Miles Davis because I love his work to this day. I mean, I think everybody likes his work, but it's great. Maybe not. I don't know. But I listen to all kinds, and a lot of it depends on my mood. But I think sometimes the music starts taking me places as I'm painting.
Do you ever dance while you're painting?
I do not dance.
No, I think it's a reason.
I stumble around some, yeah, but no dancing. But yeah, it's very important. Of course, Ferlinghetti had this wonderful printed little monograph that he did of his poems and paintings that he did, and it's interesting the number of poets who also paint. Yeah. There's a word for that. Is it ekphractic?
Oh, I'm sorry, what?
Ekphractic?
Oh, I don't know.
That is a poem. An ekphractic poem is a poem that's written about a painting.
Oh.
Yeah. There's just a lot of that. Yes.
And Kate, to speak to your question, there's a sort of lyricism I find in a number of his works. And so that's what I was trying to create here. In fact, I went into my biography from the 1920s of J.S. Bach, thinking, because, by the way, I was the president of the Bach Festival at First Congregational Church. He hosted the Bach Festival, the longest running cultural program, a cultural event in Southern California since the 1920s, I think. And so what I wanted to see, I opened up my J.S. Bach and I wanted to look at the notes and see whether I could arrange these per some notes. It didn't work out that way, but I think one still feels it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
a genius.
Okay.
It is. It's what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Scott, I just want to say how great it is to hear your story, your consistency about your practice, about your faith, how all of it sort of has integrated into creating this work, and also coming all the way from Indiana to show this work here. It's a beautiful work, and thank you for sharing it. My question really is actually for three of you. If you can tell us, and if you could do it at the same time to see if it's going to be the same answer or not, what makes a great painting, or what makes a great art? And you can only use one word. And also, you can't say beauty.
Oh, okay.
One word.
Yes.
You count us down?
So,
You count us down? We'll say it at the same time?
I'll count you down. Think about it. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
Story.
Depth.
Dang.
Did you say depth?
Story. That's it. Story.
Depth.
Oh, depth. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
I would say transcendence.
Transcendence. And can you just share a little bit of why you've answered what you answered?
For transcendence, for me, it means a painting or a work of art that takes you to a different place. I like that.
Mm-hmm. And depth, whether that is achieved through a spatial depth or depth of technique.
which would imply a certain excellence and mastery of technique.
And I said story, similar almost to both of y'all's answer, is that when I look at a piece, I want to be able to lose myself in that piece, be able to tell myself different narratives and different stories, and come up with different, because if they're going to live in my house, I'm going to walk past it 20, 25, a very small place, 30, 45 times. I'm like Janet, I couldn't get to 75 in my spot. But I'm going to look past it, and I want to be constantly immersed and constantly like lost in the depth of the space, in these stories I create with my mind. That's how I used to do when I was a kid. We had picture books, you read it, okay, the author had an okay story, but what happens if I make this cow jump over the moon and I tell my own story about why the fork left the spoon and left with the knife, right? So like that's what I'm thinking about when I think of a great piece, is like how lost can I get into it? Which I think, is that all the same answer? No?
Yeah.
Maybe?
All three of you have said something that sort of ties to
Yeah.
really
Right.
beauty, right?
Thank you. Yes.
So yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Before we close, I just want to say one thing. I want to say thank you to BeMo. This guy's awesome. And really,
I appreciate that.
and I also just want to say thank you to Adrian.
Oh, yeah.
And you asked about how I feel about this space. I love this space. I loved it the first time I saw it. I came up here, I met Adrian. We talked. I liked him so much. Such a great guy. Just a great guy. And I love what this space means to this community. And, there might be fancier places, but there aren't any better places
There you go.
than this one.
There
So
you
I
go.
would say thank you. Thank you.
There you go.
Now, isn't it about cocktail hour?
It is.
Okay.
It is.
All right.
It is. Can we give a round of applause for it? Please. Please. When I think about Scott's work, the word that comes to mind for me is upethric. Okay, and upethric means roofless. All right, it's a structure without a roof. I mean, it's endless. All right, and I think that's the core to me of what abstract represents. Is that can be anything at any time, at any place, to anybody. And I believe your work has the capacity to do that. I also fell in love with your work from an artistry standpoint, because I see your faith on canvas, right? And that's what kind of drew me to your work. And I look forward to growing with you and the different styles and the time to come. So I appreciate it. I don't tell everybody, every artist that I work with has something that's something unique about themselves. So, and that's something, I think that's something unique to you, that drew me to you and your work and your story. So I thank you for being here, and I look forward to working with you.
It's been great.
All right. Thank you so much for coming. We have refreshments in the back. If you have any questions about the work, you can ask all three of us. We have plenty of wine, plenty of water. Let's hang out. All right? All right. Thank you all for coming. Okay. All right.
So you remember my living room? That was really fun. Yeah, and I remember exactly. We sat in the hallway, we talked, we were doing photography.
Yes, please.
Oh, no, you were handing out the
6 a.m.
cards. Yeah. That's what it was. We were right in that same
Nice to have you here, too.
You text me, then I'll have you.
Then I want somebody to take a picture. Okay?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We got to catch up.
Oh, yes.
This is the last.
That's right. I was waiting. And I said, we're both looking.
Come good.
And you bought the moderator here. The whole time, where you just were like, did you get DJs? What is it?
Yeah. Okay.
Great job. All right. So I'm going to
appreciate you, man. That was good.
All of us want to be Thank you.
Yeah, that's all you
To
do.
help neighbors, they there are stuff we have, and we can have a 92-year, 94-year.
Right. Exactly. No way to say it. Exactly.
I don't see too many.
She has a million relatives. She did a COVID. I got all these lots of people all over the world, including us. Yeah, but they were all her relatives and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. It was amazing. So there are older people interested in it. So if we could
I'll get you some postcards. I'll get you some postcards before you leave. All right. All right, sure. We'll come back. I guess we'll come back. Okay, good. Is that fine? So what? Sure.
And then there's a bit coming. Well, he had slides and he had good topics.
Nice to meet you, man. Nice to meet you, man. Thank you for coming.
So
That was
Okay, we'll see you.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Hope to see you again. Yes, sir. All right. Oh, yeah.
I would have, that's great. That's great. So I'm already on the board. I'm not connected on food and things like that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Well, this is something you guys.
All right, well, let me know if you have any questions. All right.
You know the truth.
You're right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.